Yes. Yes, yes. Okay. What's the first name? Like, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Newport Board of Education special meeting. May I have a roll call, please? Here. 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 All right, we're all here, so let's, y'all are joining in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we'll have a moment of reflection. All righty. First up is Mr. Crawford, Mr. Watts.
All right, tonight we have Steve Crawford with us from Assured Partners. He's going to come and talk to you all about some insurance savings. Because insurance premiums have gone up and they have increased our deductibles. So I think Kim shared with you all the documents. Hopefully you had a chance to look at them. But Steve's just here to answer any questions that you may have and explain the proposal that he has for us to help us save some money moving forward. So with that, Steve, all yours. And yeah, if you don't mind, come up front here. So.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Had the pleasure of working with you fine folks for a lot of years. Our mission has always been to try to provide you with the best coverage, cost, and loss control, safety, things that we can. The insurance market right now is in the most turmoil I've ever experienced, and I've been doing it a while. So you may see that in your own personal insurance lives, but it's certainly true in the business insurance world. So Liberty Mutual, who is the primary insurance carrier writing public schools in Kentucky, they write somewhere in the neighborhood of 85–90% of the public schools in Kentucky. And they claim that they've lost money every year for the last 3 years writing public schools. As a result of that, they've taken some pretty dramatic changes this year. Even though they've increased premiums, we think fairly steadily in past years, this year was pretty dramatic. They not only changed the premiums, in your case, 30%, but they also changed the terms of your contract to where your deductibles are significantly higher. For example, if you had a windstorm on one of your buildings in the past, you would have had a $10,000 deductible on that entire windstorm, no matter how many buildings, no matter how many locations. In the new Liberty Mutual policy that's being proposed by them for July 1st, you would have a $100,000 deductible per location per occurrence. Well, our concern is that a lot of school districts don't have that kind of extra budget money. So, to give you a little background, Assured Partners 9 years ago acquired a company called Keenan. Keenan is a broker in California that writes 95% of the public schools in California. They do it through pooling arrangements. they have been on board with Assured Partners over those 9 years. We've been trying to study it and see how we can take that model and move it to other states. We started working on Kentucky a little close to 2 years ago, and I'm happy to tell you that as of right now, we have launched that program. So the alternative that you see in your proposal, I sent to Jennifer and Tony, that's one alternative. The other alternative we put in there is you can buy that deductible down from $100,000 to $25,000 per location, but it is still per location, per occurrence. Still could be a significant hit. So while we are your advisors, we're neutral on whether you do or don't participate in this pool, but as you can see from the numbers, it's a significant savings. So pooling in Kentucky has kind of gone out of vogue since the Kisbet Trust went bankrupt some 10 years ago. But if you look nationwide, public schools, 85% of them are insured by a pooling arrangement. So it's very common in the nation. Just Kentucky kind of got burned by a bad set of managers and a program 10 years ago. What am I forgetting, Jennifer? I think that pretty much lays it out. As I told you before, our job is to bring you the very best the market offers. Your job is to decide which of those alternatives you want to go with. I don't think you're making a decision tonight, but Tony and Jennifer wanted me to be here in case you had questions about how we got to where we are, why we're doing it. So Assured Partners, our Maysville office, our Bellevue office, and our Lexington office, we insure 39 public school districts. And, starting here in Northern Kentucky and working south. We are offering this program to all of them. You say, why just them? In order to build a program like this, we need data. So we had 10 years of loss history for you guys on those 39 rather. And we had 5 years of loss runs, and we had 3 years. We took all that data and said, okay, what would it take to have a successful pooling arrangement in Kentucky? The group that's running this for us is out of Orlando, Florida, a guy named Adam Balls. This is all he does. He's done nothing but pools his entire career. So he's good at it. I'm not good at it. I'll still just be your broker, still be your pretty face here at the meetings. But we just feel like we needed to bring something to the market. Our biggest concern, frankly, is Liberty Mutual, and we love Liberty Mutual, but there's no competition for them. The only other 2 carriers who were entertaining public schools bowed out of the market this year, so it's just Liberty Mutual. So what that means is they can do whatever they want, charge whatever they want, and there's really no competition. So I think that's pretty much where we are, how we got here. As I said, we're here on your behalf. We don't work for Liberty Mutual. I don't work for the pool. I don't work for CM Region or Keeney or any insurance company. I work for you guys.
Okay, has any others school boards, have you met with any other school boards?
Haven't had any school board meetings yet, but we have presented to the 36.
Okay.
Out of that 36, some of them it just wasn't a good fit. It didn't save them much money. Wasn't a good fit.
Okay.
And most of those are ones that were with one of those other carriers I mentioned, Wright Specialty or CM Region, not with Liberty, so they haven't had those dramatic changes forced on them yet. So of the 39, right now we have 25 holding their hands up and saying we're definitely interested. Like you all, they have to go through the process, right, of approval and review and things of that nature. At Tony's request, I had spoken to your attorney, Brandon. He's very familiar with pooling, and he understands this and is on board with it. I don't know if he's going to be here or not. So, but he is on board with it and understands it. So,
Thank you. I mean, we appreciate you coming to the meeting and explaining. Anyone have any questions?
I have a question for Jennifer, if I may. Jennifer, our deductibles on this are a lot higher. How do we account for that in our finances? and because with all the, anything that we have on here, looks like the deductible is all on that.
Right.
So how do we account for that? Is it emergency fund?
It's, yeah, I mean, I don't want to take up a large portion of the budget by, holding money for every possible option, but I usually just take the, whatever claims that we have had and looking at the past 5 years and look at that deductible and I'll put that money away. So if we were to have to, have something really major out of the ordinary, we would have to consider maybe taking it out of contingency, which is kind of why that is there, but I just look at the past 5 to 7 years of what claims that we've made, base those claims, what deductible is that, and that money is set aside.
So, am I to understand this right? I just want to make sure I'm processing. So Liberty, the deductible is, went from $25,000 to $100,000?
But actually, when your current deductible is 10,
Okay.
it's going to 100.
Well, because on this paper it says the expiring is $25,000. The paper we have. Am I reading that right? Liberty Mutual change in coverage, property, earthquake deductible is $25,000, flood is $25,000.
So, are you looking at the spreadsheet that has the
Uh-huh.
color on it? So if you look at the hail and windstorm, which is highlighted,
Okay.
it's only those claims where the deductible is gonna change.
Okay.
You were at 5, I said 10, I apologize.
Okay.
You were at 5, it's going to 100. And by the way, in the pool, it still is 100. That's just a condition of the insurance market we're in right now. Once this pool's up and running and the board, by the way, the board will be made up of a group of your peers who will run this. We'll be doing the insurance piece, but you all will make the decisions of who gets in, who gets out, what alternatives to seek. And that'll be next year, but right away in January, or July rather, we'll form a board that will help run this from your all's perspective, not from our perspective, from your perspective. But one of the things I offered in the proposal is you can buy that deductible on wind and hail down to $25,000, and I think it's $8,500 per location to do that. So to your question, sir, about the budget, if you chose to spend the $8,500 budgeted for that, then that delta is, instead of being 100,000, is now 75. Maybe a little easier to take. But if you look at your 5 and 10 year claims history, you really haven't had major storms hitting your buildings. Or some more. It'll happen tomorrow, right?
We had a lightning strike a couple of years ago, but that's really the only thing.
Yes.
A couple of minor bus issues. But
Yeah, this does not affect the buses, to your point, Ramona. This is only wind and hail claims
Okay.
that are affected by this deductible.
Okay, so what other policies, so is this the only coverage we have with Liberty?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you buy, I don't want to overcomplicate this, 4 buckets of insurance. You buy student accident insurance
Right.
through Roberts, you buy workers' comp through us,
Mm-hmm.
and you buy cyber liability through us.
Right.
Cyber, student accident, and work comp are not affected by this.
Okay.
Liberty doesn't do those. Just what we call the package, it's everything else except those.
So Liberty Mutual only insures our facilities and cyber.
Liability, board liability,
Like-
again, it's everything except cyber, except work comp, except
Okay.
student accident. So it's the majority of your premium, as you can see from this sheet.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's, over $500,000 for just the Liberty piece.
So how much is it for the pooling? Do we know what that would be?
$498
That number. over here.
versus $550.
Optional.
Yeah.
So we would say,
So it's over $50,000.
huh?
Over $50,000.
Yeah.
Am I reading that right? Yeah.
No, it's a little bit more than that, because
about
it's,
52,000.
What is it?
About 52,000.
Yeah, 52.
So
just wanted you to hear it, have time to digest it, have some time, you know, afterwards, if you have any questions, to have plenty of time to reach out to Mr. Crawford if you have questions that Tony or I couldn't answer, and then it will be, we'll have a recommendation for you at the June regular meeting.
Yeah, I probably don't need to say this, but I will anyway. You know, this is what I do for a living. I insure public entities, not just schools, but municipalities. So if I didn't believe this could work, you would have never heard about it from me. My reputation, you know, this doesn't work, guess whose reputations? So I've seen it work, I know it'll work. The group that's running this for us runs a large pool in Southwest Ohio that has 60 schools in it. It's getting ready to go from 60 to 120 on July 1st. So this kind of thing, given the insurance market, is becoming the answer. I mean, again, it has been the answer in many states, it just hasn't been here. So I have no reservations with presenting it to you, but I also have no, you're not gonna hurt my feelings if you say, look, stay with Liberty. Truthfully, selfishly, it's easier if you stay with Liberty for us, because we don't have to do much else. But that's not my job. My job is to bring you what's there. And so I hope you understand what I'm saying. Like Jennifer said, you have my contact. If not, she can give it to you. I'm perfectly happy to talk to any offline or any questions that come up, shoot them to me.
Thank you, I'm sure I'll call you.
Okay. It is complicated, no doubt.
No, you know, having a career insurance, I'm curious, and I have some questions, but I don't want to hold the meeting just out of curiosity, because it kind of puts me in mind that, you know, with your person, the more cars you have, you know, the more discounts you get.
Yeah, so one of the tricky parts of pricing this is really not knowing
Right.
how many are in or how many aren't.
Yes.
So we had to take a delta of we built it around 20, okay, just to take that middle ground. It's not going to vary. It probably won't at this stage vary at all from what I've presented to you. If we ended up with a really small number, it could. And frankly, if we don't get at least 10, it won't go at all, and then you're stuck with Liberty like you would have been anyhow.
Right.
So, but again, at the moment, the indications are pretty strong that we'll have at least 25 then.
All right, sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
It's good to see your face today.
Okay.
All right, next up, we have, friends from NWA, and like Nala, introduce Chris.
Madam Chair, Board Members, Superintendent Watts, I want to introduce you to Christopher Price. He's with Model Schools, who actually bought out NWA. So he's here for after the presentation. If you have some specific questions about the coaching piece or our leadership part, Elliot's going to do the majority of the presentation about the 5 Essentials survey. And if you want to introduce Renee and her role.
And so we also have Renee, Dr. Renee Charlotte Marble Thomas, who is the Director of Professional Learning. She's on the call as well, but Elliot's the one who's here. I'm just here in person. I don't know why, but I'm here. I'm glad to be here. And the outskirts of Cincinnati, we're right here in Newport. So I will take questions, though, if y'all have questions about model schools, as well as about anything that we're doing with the coaching after Elliot does his great job with telling you about the 5 essentials. Elliot?
Great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, first and foremost, for letting me join you virtually. Sorry I can't be there in person. And I know I was virtual with you all, I think, July of last year. So I think you're sitting in roughly the same seats from what I can tell. But memory may not serve me particularly well, but appreciate the opportunity to join you. And I just wanted to share just a little bit, so I'm going to share my screen here. Just a little bit of kind of reflection on the data from this year, and kind of looking at it relative to last year. So I don't want to necessarily go deep into the 5 essentials out of the gate. If you have questions, certainly happy to do that. But I know I had the opportunity to share some of that when we were last together. So I don't want to be redundant, but instead want to just kind of shift and look at just some takeaways from the data from this year. First and foremost, just to kind of remind us a little bit from last year. So when we engaged in the survey survey last year, and as a reminder, it's a survey of students in grades 4 through 12, teachers pre-K-12, and then parents who are eligible as well. So this is the response rates that we saw during the survey administration last year. So you can see overall some pretty solid response rates. And for context, they're actually very solid, especially for a first year implementation. And if we switch over to this past school year, or this school year that's concluding response rates, you can actually see some growth in a couple areas, student and teacher in particular. And the parent survey response rate remaining, again, all things considered relatively strong in the primary and intermediate schools and the high school, as most high schools tend to do, struggles a little bit more with getting a high response rate on the parent survey. As a reminder, for student and teacher survey, we are able to analyze the data and issue a report back to the school, include that data in a district report. If the students and teachers hit 50% response rate threshold or above, and for parents it's at the 20% or above. So you'll see that the primary school does not have students who are eligible to take the survey, hence the NA, but the teacher and parent survey responses both surpassed the response rate threshold, so they were able to get data from both those two audiences. The intermediate school was able to get it across all three, and then the high school was able to get student and teacher data, which gives you the complement of the 5 essentials themselves. And again, for context, these are really solid response rates across the board. The high school one, again, for parents is below the response rate threshold. That is a relatively common occurrence. So I just wanted to give a little bit of context there. Once we collect the data, we are able to analyze it and provide reports back at the individual school level and then overall district data. So in looking at that, here you can see this is the 23-24 data, but you see that change column in there in the middle, which enables us to understand kind of where we were last year relative to this year. The overall performance across the essentials actually remains the same, so this kind of puzzle piece graphic, if you will, looked identical last year to this year, where there are 4 of the 5 essentials that are presently in the weak category, 1 in the neutral, and it's the same composition of each of those. However, if you look over at the change column, you will see that in 4 of the 5 essentials, there was at least a little bit of progress or gain year over year. And the essential scores are actually a composite score for a series of concepts that exist underneath. So seeing a composite score at an essential level trend positively is suggesting that there is growth in these underlying concepts that are really critical for school improvement. And then supportive environment tick down just a tad. But in general, when we look at this, we think about it as at a measure level, and therefore kind of rolling it up loosely at an essential level, the changes of 5 points or more in either direction put a school in, if it's a positive kind of growth, put it in a top quartile of growth, and if it's regression, if it's kind of a decline in the score, then it puts it toward the bottom quartile. So you'll see that 4 of the 5 essentials changed, but not dramatically one way or another. You have collaborative teachers, which I believe was an intentional area of focus over the course of this last year, growing the most, actually getting to the place where it's kind of tipping over into a level of growth that puts it at a district level kind of in a top quartile of improvement year over year. And we can take this and we can kind of break it down. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to highlight both the highest performing measures from this year and those that were most improved. So here you can see, not surprisingly, in terms of measures that are kind of highest performing, they exist within that ambitious instruction essential, which is the highest performing of the essentials. And each of those measures, English instruction and math instruction, give us a window into the student's perspective on the experiences that they have in their classroom in terms of kind of the tasks that they are asked to engage in, It's not talking about curriculum. There's not a reliable way to survey about curriculum. It's not getting into differentiation for individual students based off of, accelerated need, grade level need, or below grade level need, but instead is looking at high quality practices and the prevalence of those, so that can then marry with information that the schools and the district have about the students' needs, and the curricular programs that are at play. So it kind of gives us a window into the thing that we are best able to survey to then complement the data that the district can have quantitatively and qualitatively locally. We also can look at and see areas in performance that increase the most year over year. And here again, looking at these measures, all 5 of these that are listed here grouped by 5 points or more, which again puts it in the place of kind of top quartile of improvement year over year. And looking at collaborative practices, school commitment, and collective responsibility, those 3 all exist within that collaborative teachers essential, which again was, I think, a particular area of focus. So seeing the district's work and the focus on creating environmental conditions for teacher collaboration and this kind of collective responsibility and collaborative practices to take hold and to grow really started to pay off this year, which is really terrific. On the flip side, we want to take a look at the lowest performing, the most decreased measures year over year. So you can see some smattering of things that exist kind of across essentials. Safety is one of those that's in supportive environment. We have 2 that are within the involved families. 1 that's in vicious instruction, 1 that's within effective leaders. So we see a kind of smattering of areas that are currently laggards, if you will, that exist kind of in the different essentials. And then we can take a look at the areas that decrease the most year over year. And I want to call out that only 1 of those actually decreased to the place where it's kind of toward the bottom quartile in terms of change year over year. The others are not kind of crossing that threshold, so are relatively average in terms of the change year over year. 2 of these do exist within effective leaders. The teacher-teacher trust is within collaborative teachers, and peer support for academic work is within supportive environment, which again is the one essential that did not increase year over year. In terms of next steps, again, kind of the process that this really relies on is the idea of continuing to actually make use of the data. So at the school-based level and at the district level, to dig into the data, to unpack it, to understand it in the local context with the local conditions, to triangulate it with the other data that the district and the schools have, and use that to fuel planning efforts and engage in an improvement plan implementation. So it's about creating this cycle of improvement and not getting kind of caught in this, either analysis paralysis or getting caught in plan do, ping pong, and not actually kind of engaging with it in this really structured manner, where we take a step back and reflect on our data, use that to tweak our work going forward, and engage in cycles of improvement. So kind of continuing in that process, continuing with the embedded coaching to help support the leaders in this change management work, engage in when available and able to do so, and additional specific 5 essentials-based professional learning, and then keep true to the cycle and the habit of collecting data to continue to get that read on the organizational conditions to help us have the insights and the data necessary to continue in our school improvement processes. So I'll pause there, and like I said, I just wanted to give a high-level overview from a district perspective, and I'm happy to answer any questions either about that or about the 5 essentials themselves, if there are any of those.
So, how often are you guys in the schools? What's the plan moving forward as far as implementation of
cycle of improvement, addressing analysis paralysis?
How do we break free from that? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's engaging in the staying true to the process, and that's where the coaching, and again, I don't know, Chris will be able to answer that too, engaging in the coaching and having a partner who is deeply invested in the work, but is a third party, if you will, to serve as that kind of shoulder-to-shoulder strategic thinker, partner, to help folks flesh things out, leaders flesh out ideas, leaders stay true to the implementation, have a sense of kind of accountability that is built into that coaching dynamic, and make a decision, find an area, chart a path, and be true to executing against that, and then scheduling strategic opportunities and moments to actually step back and reflect on, first and foremost, have we actually done what we said we were going to do? Because if we haven't, we shouldn't go to the question of like, what changed as a result of what we've done? Because if we didn't actually do what we said we were going to do, then any change that happened is, happenstance and not actually able to be ascribed to something that we did with intent. And so we need to get into that habit of continually stepping back as leadership teams within schools and with the district around what is it that we said we were going to do? What have we done relative to that? What barriers did we encounter and what successes did we have? And what actually came of that effort? Did we actually grow? Did we, miss the mark? Did things kind of stay stagnant? Whatever the case may be, use those insights and fold them right back into the way in which we're thinking about engaging in action planning and implementation going forward. So it's about looking at improvement as a science, as a discipline that we continually engage in, similar to the scientific method, that we work to embed in our systems and the culture of our schools.
Okay, so the question was, since you all were here last year, what was your participation doing this year? How many times were you in the buildings? Do you have that information on how many times you met with our leaders, the coaching map? Do you have those results?
Yeah, Chris or Renee, I'll need to defer to the two of you if you have that from Maria and Damien and the work that they did.
So Maria and, go ahead, Renee, I'm sorry.
So Maria was there monthly, working with principals, and we also had Damien who was there working with the instructional coaches monthly.
And when did this start?
It started in January, and consistently during each month in which they supported the principals, Maria with their plan they had created, and that we had a transition with the work from one coach to a different coach when we merged together. And so Maria picked up and started supporting those leaders. Also, she supported Darla with some planning at the district level and with the at the district level, and then Damien worked with those principals, instructional coaches within the buildings.
And so the process now is going to be, and we met with Darla earlier today, and kind of talked about next year. How do we continue that support? Because we're starting to make a shift. I'm going to use your phrase. You got a big line that you're trying to kind of turn here. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. But it is turning. It's starting to move. But that trust piece of having that trust, that's something that it's processes that you have to have in place, that you create that in your building. And so that's something that we're specifically working on, and that's something that we're going to hope to continue working on for next year, especially for that coaching, the coaching cycle piece. And then we would also have Maria and Damien, so there's consistency there, because once you have those relationships built, because it's all about relationships, and then once you have that, then you can create that environment for change.
So how do you create that type of relationship, only being in the building once a month?
It's a challenge. The great thing about our coaches is they're available almost all the time. They have their cell numbers that they share. So text me if you've got a question. If you're wondering about something and you're wanting to run through it. Our coaches have been in those seats. They know how to run a building because they've done it before, and they've done it successfully. A lot of them have been district administrators as well. I always tell people, I'm a surviving district office employee. You can do it. Everybody can do it. But that said, it's one of those things where the more touch points you have, the better chances of really starting to see that systematic change. but that can be a little bit cost prohibitive too, because it costs money to bring people in and things like that. So trying to find those ways that we can still touch base through email or text or things like that between those visits is important. But then also trying to make sure that we're at least having a touch point once a month.
What is your all's role, involvement with the actual planning? I mean, is it hands-on, or is it just kind of throwing out some ideas of, how are you guys involved with that?
And when you're asking about planning,
Well,
specifically.
the plans to fix the things that we have to fix.
So the plans to fix the things. So certainly, we're not here to tell you how to run the building, because you're hired to do that. But again, we've got experience in how to do that. We also bring a ton of research with us as far as what works and what's best practice in schools. We also work across the country in lots of other buildings and do the same thing. So what works in some places is probably going to work in others, and sometimes you do have to modify and adjust. Our highlighted conference that we have every year, the Model Schools Conference, is coming up at the end of this month. That's where we celebrate all these schools that are doing great things, that have double-digit gains in student outcomes. What did y'all do? What did that look like? And so these schools apply to be model schools, and they have to show us what did they do, and then we look for something that can be replicable too. We bring that to the table in the coaching piece, because that's what we're all after, is student outcomes, improving student outcomes. But you have to have, as the 5 essentials, as Elliot was saying earlier, you have to have that foundational piece of, relationships matter. At model schools, we believe that wholeheartedly. Relationships is the foundation. But once you have relationships and you have that trust that's built, now we can focus on rigor. We can focus on engagement. We can focus on those things that's going to change the student outcomes. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
How long, on these model schools, what sort of timeline are we looking at here? I mean, I know it's not an overnight,
It's not.
I'm sure it takes years and years to do it, but what is the, maybe the median amount of time?
Well, all I can do is quote research, and the research, and Darla and I talked about this too, the research is in 3 years you start to see some gains, but in 5 years you see the turn. And so research, anywhere in that time frame, I think it's fair to say that you're going to see that process. There are things that come up though. I mean, who would have thought COVID? I mean, that was knocked across the head, if you will, and it just stopped things. So there are things that can happen that are a little out of control and that will kind of twist that a little bit, but the research says 3 to 5 years.
And so, when did we partner with you all? What year was that?
So, the
2022?
5 essentials was 2022.
This year,
Last academic year was the first year.
So 22-23 was the first.
Yeah, the 22-23 school year was year 1, so that's kind of a baseline with the 5 essentials data. And then this year, seeing the change from the intentional efforts as how we actually start to see it come alive and continue the improvement process from there.
Do you stay with us through this entire 3 to 5 year period, or do you contracted with you?
And that's fine. So Elliot Ransom with U of Chicago, he is here to help with that support during that period of time. As the Center for Model Schools, we contract through yearly, and so we'll come back, and that's again what Darla and I were talking about today, kind of talking about what next year looks like, and we're just kind of throwing out some ideas and that kind of thing. We will continue to, our thing is we want to be flexible and agile to meet the needs of the district and try to, scratch whatever itch we have, if you will. Yes,
So, what the results that you've seen, Elliot, in this, I guess, year, because I know there was a gap because there was some transition and change where you all were not able to be in the building, right? And when school started in 2023,
Last year, there was a changeover, so we didn't have any money, I think, from,
October to March.
March.
Right, that's the period I was looking for.
Yeah.
So from October 2023 through March, there was no, March 24,
Yeah.
there was no contact or visits from you all, right? Because change in leadership, plan, staffing,